It is day 2 of Transformers Week on the Extreme channel, and today we're going to put together this $2,000 Transformers statue. Now I want to officially welcome you to the Extreme channel. My name is Mr. X, and here we're all about high-end collectibles. I have a $2,000 Transformer right in front of me. This is Galvatron from the 4th film in the Michael Bay series. This is from Age of Extinction, and we're going to talk all about him. We're going to review him, and I'm so excited to get him into my collection because there's a little bit of a backstory with this guy. What's that? You want to know it? Sure, I'll tell you. But first I got to tell you about some giveaways we're doing. We're giving away these 2 Venom statues. Make sure you've liked this video, you've subscribed to the channel, and you've hit that bell notification. We're also giving away monthly extrizes, gift packages to 2 lucky people. All you have to do is comment on a video to enter. The more videos you comment on, the higher your chances are to win. Now, believe it or not, this Transformer did not assemble himself. It was really me behind the scenes. Now, if you were a member of the Extreme Channel YouTube page, you can actually check out a video right here. You would have seen all that because they have access to all the behind the scenes stuff. They get to see this finished video now early. Vlogs, stuff like that. But this is officially by Prime 1 Studios. They made and distributed this piece, Galvatron. And Galvatron's kind of an interesting character. He played a minor role. He was not really the main villain in this. So Galvatron actually was a creation by human beings. They found an element called transformium, which is kind of like liquid metal with T1000. You know what I'm talking about? So that was T1000. This is actually a scene from the movie where Galvatron was. Galvatron doesn't transform in the typical traditional way. More of a futuristic nanotech type stuff going on. Now what's interesting about him, as I said, the humans actually built him. They were using the technology off Megatron's head, which actually Megatron's head is right down here. It's part of this statue. And as they tried to create Galvatron, actually being the replacement for Optimus Prime that they could control, he began to take on characteristics of a Decepticon. And as I said, believe it or not, the main villain in this movie was probably humans. And then it was followed by Lockdown, who's kind of an international bounty hunter. I've actually done a review on the statue of Lockdown. You can check it out right here. And because he's such a lesser villain, he didn't have a lot of popularity. And this is especially true with this statue. Prime 1 Studios actually made 1,888 of these, and they are still available. You can still get them to this day, and not only that, but when they do their twice-a-year sale, they discount him 30% just to try and get rid of him. He retails at $1,900, but I ended up getting him $1,400 shipped economy from Prime 1 Studios. You can ship economy from Prime 1 Studios as opposed to their standard shipping, which is usually $300 to $400. I think it was $80 to ship this. It does take 4 to 6 months, but you save a couple $100. And with Transformers here, they take up a lot of space. And the reason I purchased him was, not only was it a screaming deal, but I couldn't find any good YouTube reviews on this guy. I was looking to see if he's a great piece to buy. I actually messaged one of my virtual friends, S7 Customs, who's owned him in the past. I don't know if he still owns him. And I was like, hey man, is he awesome? He said, yes, he's awesome. So I trust his judgment. And I went ahead and purchased him. And as I'm sitting here, kind of a spoiler, as we're going to dive into the review, he's pretty damn awesome. So let's do the review, and if you're new to the channel, we use something called the Extreme Scale. It's a 1 through 5 scale, or a T through X. On the far left, T or 1 is trash, and X is extreme, and we look at a number of categories, starting with concept. Now, while I'm not a huge fan of the movie this is from, I am a huge fan of the way the characters look, which is why you purchase a statue to kind of enjoy the art of it. All of these pieces have a huge base, and some bigger than others depending on the character. Like this one, this base is just monstrous. We'll measure it during design. And it has a lot of futuristic elements. I say this every single review. It's Cybertronian, kind of that from the Cybertron planet. And Galvatron is in a museum pose. All of their pieces from this line are in a museum pose, kind of posing for a picture. And as you move up him, you see elements of the robotic part of him. You see elements of what he transforms into, which is a semi-truck, just like Optimus Prime. You don't see as many facets of the semi-truck, but remember, he transforms differently than Optimus Prime. It's not a traditional, it's more of that nanotechnology morphing of the body parts. And he has a number of switch outs. But I like them a lot. They're kind of badass. The one you're seeing now is this huge cannon, which we'll talk about. And he just looks really stoic. Just badass. Come get me. So the things I like about the concept, I like that it follows the rest of the line. All museum poses, all similar bases. I like the fact that you can display how powerful he is by the sheer presence. But there's nothing really that's amazing. It's like, oh, the concept of this, all they did was take a lesser known villain from the Transformers movies and put him in a museum pose with a whole bunch of stuff going on. So I think the concept honestly is very average. It's a 3 out of 5. It's very nice. And remember, that's not a bad score. Jumping into design on this guy, there's a lot going on. Now first we're going to start with his size, because this is really important on a number of factors. So the diameter of the base is about 24 inches at the largest point, very similar to the Megatron Revenge of the Fallen. And at the end of this, not only will you see close-up video of him, but you will see links to other Transformers I have reviewed. And if you caught my video a few days ago, I actually have another piece from this movie just as big coming in a few days. Check out that video because you're going to see where everything's displayed together. The height on him is damn over 31 inches or so, right under 30 inches. With just him, you're talking about 26. So that's the first thing I want to talk about with design. These bases almost make them impossible to display. They're too big, they take up too much room, and they're nothing fancy. They look nice, but they're nothing amazing. However, with a few of the pieces, I talked about this in that lockdown review, you can display them without the base. I don't know if they're meant to display that way or not, but essentially the base has a male peg inserted up and the foot has a female peg. Both this and the Optimus Prime I'm getting have that, so I intend to display them without the bases. So you'll see what that looks like on the Optimus Prime video. So there is that option. If that option was intended, I think it was really smart. However, I don't believe it was intended because some of the pieces, the male part sticks out of the foot, so you cannot display it without the base. So this is the exclusive version. When we say exclusive, that means it usually comes with an extra piece or switch out or something of that nature. What this has is it has Megatron's head in a little display right up front here. So 888 of these came with Megatron's head, and the other 1,000 did not. This is clearly not a case of exclusive or bust, especially since I already have 2 other Megatron heads, but it's neat to have with it. However, all of them do have some switch outs on the right arm. Here is just the hand, and I'm not a fan of this. I will probably never use this. I should probably put it back in the box. Or you have that blaster, and that blaster looks awesome. It looks a lot better in real life than it did in the pictures. And he does have some light up features. First, here's his chest not lit up, but then a picture of it lit up, and it lights up really easy. It's just a button on the back, so it's easy access. And his portrait also has a light up feature that's easy to turn on. Here it is without it, and then you can see it lit up. However, I'm not a fan of the Transformers statues lighting up because I really only do it when I review it and then never again. And if I try it in 6 months, it seems like the batteries are dead. It did come with instructions, and traditionally the instructions are not very good. Thankfully, this piece only had 38 pieces. Here's actually a picture of what it looked like before I put it together. And then it came in 2 very large boxes. Here they are right here. My cell phone's on top to kind of give you scale. Then here's the art box. They always make pretty cool art boxes for the Transformers, pretty similar theme. Here is just the base box, which I actually intend to box this back up because, like I said, I'm not going to use the base. And then here are the 2 layers that contain Galvatron and all the other pieces. The other thing with him, not only were there only 38 pieces, where Jet Power Prime, the link to that will be at the end, was almost 100, but it was actually pretty easy to put together despite directions not being the best. So I like a lot of the things they did differently on the design of this piece. I like the fact there's not two different portraits. I don't think they're needed. I like the fact that you can display it without the base. I like the fact that the directions were easier. The light ups, while not needed, it's great that they're easy to turn on and off. I like that the switch out on the arm is with all the versions, not just the exclusive. So I'm going to give the design on this a 4 out of 5. I think it's much better. They're gradually getting better, being able to display these massive pieces without destroying all of your real estate. Jumping into paint and sculpt on this guy, this is where he really shines, and you're going to see a lot of similar elements to the other Transformers, but we'll start with the base here. What's interesting about this is his base has a lot of shading. So it has a lot of the blue parts to kind of mimic his body. You're going to see a lot of blue running throughout his body, but the silvers and grays have a lot of black shading, almost like it's dirty and old, where a lot of the other ones are a lot more new. It seems like they're going kind of dirty and old with some of the villains. Some gold trim on here as well. Check out the Decepticon symbol in the front. And here's the top of it. You got some copper rings. A little bit more new up here, kind of silver shiny, which you're going to see with Galvatron in a second. But before you do, let's check out Megatron's head. I didn't think it was really needed, and this is not interchangeable with the Megatron statue, just kind of a heads up on that. But it's neat to have with it. It looks really good, lots of detail on here. The base is semi-similar to Galvatron's base. Some cool magnets, how they made everything work together. Now as we move up Galvatron, one of the things you're going to see is he's really shiny. The metallic outer parts are really shiny like an Autobot would be, which I think that's because he's a different type of Transformer. He's not your traditional old metal, it's the Transformium inside of him, but you still see all those inner components. You see a few pieces that might be car parts, especially as we're going to get closer to his crotch. Kind of weird that his car parts are in his crotch. But I'm just kind of showing you different shots all over here because there's yellow and copper and gold and silver and black and metallic colors and blue. And you see piping and hoses and other mechanisms. And here's up by his crotch, kind of what I was telling you. This really looks more like an engine. A bunch of pieces in here. And I think it just makes him look a little more badass. Check out his back here, his butt. A lot of the same stuff. So much detail on this on the front and back, even when you plan to display it just on the back. You also have some alien writing on his leg, which is interesting because a lot of the other Transformers do as well. I think all of them actually. But he was human made, so it's interesting that he has that writing. And you'll see that writing right here on kind of his wrist blades. That's what I call these. These are actually on his forearms, the bottoms of his forearms, another badass fighting trait of him. Kind of these saw-like blades. And I think you can display without. There's a small keyhole, but why would you? Because they're awesome. Let's look at the back of his portrait. One thing that was always different about him is you can actually see through him. He always had that hole. That's kind of where Transformers kept their, not their heart, but their spark, their life was always in the middle. And I think this insinuates he doesn't have any. It has that yellow, and you see a lot more yellow towards the top of the statue, kind of some decals on the back here. You can kind of see some parts to what would assumably be the semi that he transforms into. But so much inner workings on this statue. I'm really impressed by this guy. And check out the front of the torso. You see a lot of what we were just talking about, but even more so. And it looks just fantastically badass. I think one negative a lot of these Transformers have is the portraits always look a little too small. That's not the case here, and we'll see that in a second. But let's look at his arms first. He has these giant shoulder blades. Looks very cool. The proportions on him are very good, other than his feet are a little big. I think he's probably the best proportioned Transformer I've got. And more of those tubes and hoses. It almost looks like he's wearing this armor as you go down his arm. Let's look at the gun or the blaster. This is really interesting. Reminds me for some reason of a satellite, like in space. It would have been cool if this lit up. For sure going to display it with this as opposed to the hand. Now, one other thing about his portrait is Their portraits, you can always swivel back and forth a little bit, which is great. But the crazy thing about his portrait is his portrait looks like the other Transformers. It doesn't look like it's Transformium. It looks like there's actually automated parts, but there's so much detail and so much going on in here. And it's hard to make expressions on these guys. But the face, I like what they did. It's not my favorite portrait, but it wasn't in the movie. I think it's very movie accurate. And there's some crazy things going on the sides here. Almost looks like a samurai helmet in a way. You see a lot of blue circuitry and copper wiring. Check out the back. He's got these weird little, I don't even know what these are called, almost brown guards. So overall, I am really loving this piece. I think there's so much detail in the sculpt. There's so much detail. I mean, just the more you look, the more you find. I mean, you could spend hours and hours just looking at all the details in here. And I think the paint job just really pops. I hate that some of the Decepticons are so dark because it makes them harder to display and harder to see, especially in the room I currently have them in. It's a temporary room. But I think his paint job is excellent. I like the light blue colors. I think this guy on the paint is a 5 out of 5. I think it's an X. I think the paint is really well done. Makes him pop more than the other Transformers. I think the detail in the sculpt is even better than that. Not that there's a higher score than that, but that's an X as well. I think it's a 5 out of 5 on the sculpt on this guy. I think he is probably the most detailed of them all. My favorite is still the Optimus Prime Jet Power because of its sheer presence, but I can't wait to see what he looks like next to it. Since he is a new piece in stock, let's talk about value. Transformer pieces in this size, I never talked about scale. This is non-scaled. Most people assume it's about 1/10 that a Transformer would be 10 times larger. Traditionally run $1,500 to $3,500. And he came in at $1,900, but they have that winter and summer sale twice a year. You can get them for $1,400 shipped to the US. That's a steal for this piece. It really is. The fact that he's a lesser known character does hurt it some. Not only lesser known, but less popular. But I still think it's a 4 out of 5 on the value for this piece at that winter sale price. So overall, if this was a character I was in love with, I would definitely say this is an X of a statue. But he's not. And for that reason alone, it takes him down a notch. This is a rail, a 4 out of 5 statue. A rail is not a grail, but something you'd really want. Very impressed by Prime 1 Studios. And one interesting thing, we didn't talk about this with value. Their Michael Bay Transformers, for the most part, always seem to resell in the aftermarket when they're sold out for more. So I think that's an awesome indication, not only of how awesome these pieces are, whether you like the movies or not, but the following that Transformers has. So let's look at some close-up video of this guy, and you can really take in what I'm seeing. So before I close out, I know you're thinking, Mr. X, I'm really disappointed with you. Huge statue, not one "that's what she said" joke. And I can't believe you had to use directions.
That's what she said.
Now, if you like this kind of stuff, make sure to hit that little logo right there to subscribe to the channel. If you don't like me yet, that's fine. You will after about 60 videos. But you can check out some of these other Transformer reviews, and make sure to stay tuned because in about 4 or 5 days, we're going to drop that Age of Extinction Optimus Prime review. Take care, guys.